You know, we've all pictured it. A nursing student who has absolutely crushed every single exam. They know the textbooks inside and out. But then they step into their first real clinical rotation. A patient's vitals suddenly start to crash, and they just freeze. That right there, that's the gap we're going to talk about. It's this massive chasm between knowing the theory and actually doing the practice when it really, really counts.
And look, this isn't some abstract academic question. The answer really determines patient safety. It shapes a brand new nurse's confidence on their very first day. I mean, the stakes could not be higher. So how do we give them that crucial hands-on experience in an environment that is 100% safe?
Well, the real gold standard is to create nurses who don't just blindly follow a checklist. We want them to think critically on their feet. And that right there is the heart of what we call evidence-based practice, or EBP. Honestly, you can think of it as the GPS for patient care. It's not about guessing which way to go, it's about using the best, most current data to get that patient to the best possible outcome, every single time.
Okay, so if EBP is the GPS, how do we teach them to use it? This is where clinical simulation comes in. It's our answer. It is, for all intents and purposes, a flight simulator for nurses. It's a place where they can face a code blue or handle a really difficult conversation with a patient's family, and the only thing at risk is maybe the mannequin's plastic pride. They get to feel the adrenaline, they get to make those tough calls, all in a totally controlled and safe space.
But let's be real. Is this flight simulator just a super fancy, really expensive toy? Or does it actually build better, more evidence-based nurses? To get to the bottom of that, we have to look at the evidence itself. And that's exactly where this fascinating study by Leo Costa and his team comes into play. They put this very idea under the microscope.
Their research question was incredibly sharp and to the point. They wanted to know, could this high-tech training actually move the needle on one of the toughest things to teach? That ability to think like a scientist right there at the bedside. Could simulation truly forge an evidence-based mindset?
Now, this wasn't just about letting students play around with a mannequin. No way. What makes this study so powerful is the design. The researchers intentionally built this learning experience in 3 distinct stages, and each one was carefully crafted to build on the last.
Think about it like a complete learning cycle. First, you've got the pre-briefing. That's where you study the map, you do your prep work. Then you have the participation. That's when you actually get in the car and drive the course. You're hands-on in the scenario. And finally, and this is so crucial, you have the debriefing. That's like reviewing the race footage with your coach. It's where the real, deep learning clicks into place.
And here it is. This is the secret sauce. The simulation didn't actually start when the students walked into the sim lab. It started hours, maybe even days before that. They were given a challenge. Go find the evidence. They had to become researchers before they could become first responders, digging into the latest science to back up the actions they were about to take.
So the design is pretty impressive, right? It's thoughtful, it's intentional, but the million-dollar question remains. Did this structured, evidence-first approach actually get results? Let's take a look at the data.
I mean, this is the question every single nursing dean, every educator, every curriculum designer wants answered. Does this big investment of time and faculty and expensive technology actually produce better nurses?
And the answer, as this chart just so clearly shows, is a huge, resounding yes. The data is crystal clear. The simulation didn't just help a little bit, it led to a significant boost in both their hands-on EBP skills and their foundational knowledge. From an educational perspective, this was an absolute home run.
And you don't have to just take my word for it. The authors themselves tell us exactly why it worked so well. By making students search for evidence before the scenario even began, the simulation turned EBP from some abstract idea in a book into a vital survival tool they needed to succeed. It made the evidence feel real and, more importantly, necessary.
Okay, so it's really tempting to think this is all about having a fancy, high-tech mannequin. But what's so exciting is that the core principles from this study, that 3-act structure, can be applied to a whole universe of learning technologies.
You see, simulation is a huge spectrum. It could be a full-on VR scenario where you're totally immersed in a virtual ER. It could be a live actor, a standardized patient who really challenges your communication skills. Heck, it can even be a really well-designed interactive case study you do on a tablet or a self-paced online module. The specific tool can change, but those principles of good design, they stay the same. It really all boils down to a simple but powerful principle of how our brains are wired. We learn best when words and pictures work together in harmony. It's exactly why a great infographic is so much more impactful than a dense paragraph of text. So the magic isn't just in the tech, it's in how you mix it all together, that intentional integration of what we see and what we hear.
So the big question is, how can we as educators and designers take these amazing ideas and apply them directly to our own work? Let's distill this into some practical, evidence-based takeaways for your curriculum planning.
Okay, just look at this first row for a second. We have all seen an overloaded interface, right? Too much text, way too many buttons, just total chaos on a screen. The risk here is something called extraneous cognitive load, and that's really just a fancy way of saying you're making the learner's brain work on all the wrong things, like just trying to figure out the layout instead of actually learning the material. The evidence-based solution? It's simple. Simplify. Get rid of the clutter and focus only on what is absolutely essential for learning.
And that right there brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. Don't get seduced by the shiniest, newest piece of tech. The most effective learning experiences are not built on fancy hardware. They're built on a deep, fundamental understanding of how the human brain actually learns. The educator, the designer, they must always be in the driver's seat, not the technology. So, as we all go back to our own work, the question isn't just if we should use these tools, but how. How can we use simulation and multimedia to their absolute fullest potential? If simulation truly is that critical bridge connecting the classroom to the clinic, then these evidence-based principles are the strong pillars that hold it up. So the final question for you is this: are you just building a bridge, or are you designing a landmark? The choice is yours.